Well, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first guest speaker, Caitlin Gold of Tech Women, an amazing charity working with young people in Cornwall and women to develop their digital skills.
Hi And so my name's Caitlin. Don't worry, Olivia, I've taken control, so I can click my slides. And I don't work in offshore wind, but what I'm going to talk about today is a little bit more about pivoting into more technical roles and how that is relevant to working within floating offshore wind. So as I mentioned, so I've got a few things we'll be covering. So I'm going to be talking about my own journey in terms of my pivot careers, why floating offshore wind wants more women, the power of transferable skills, why now is a really good time to pivot, overcoming imposter syndrome, and then finally talking about how to start pivoting into floating offshore wind careers. So start by saying again, my name's Caitlin Gould, and I've got about 20 years working in digital and tech careers. That goes from graphic design, publishing, digital marketing, business development, strategy. I'm currently the co-founder and director of Tech Women, which is a community interest company that tries to help more women and girls get into technology, engineering, and creative industries. I've also co-founded a women's health startup called Kenza Health, and I'm the kind of current sitting chair of the Cornwall and Isles of Scilly Digital Skills Partnership Board. And critically for today's talk is I don't have experience in offshore wind, but I have a lot of experience pivoting careers. I've got a picture up here of my 3 children, and the reason I often bring it up is because each one of them created a major career pivot for me, some by choice, some not by choice. So we'll go into that in a little bit. I think a lot of times when people are thinking about their career pathways, it's kind of presented and taught to us, especially when we're talking to young kids, that you kind of pick something you like or that you're good at, and then you just get better at it for the rest of your life, eventually moving into maybe senior leadership positions. But it's still very traditionally presented as like this very clear and straight pathway, especially in a single sector or around a single skill. But I know for me, especially from my own career, it's been anything but straightforward. I couldn't find a picture of somebody falling off a cliff and getting back on again. So this is probably the most kind of best visualization I could have, which is that oftentimes within the career, you have no idea what's coming next. It's really foggy and you can see the pathway you're on at the moment, but it doesn't mean we're able to see the full picture until we look backwards at what that looks like. And it means that even if you do stay within a particular skill set that you like, where that takes you, the direction it takes you in, and the jobs that you do might end up looking completely different from where you first started out. So in terms of what that looks like for me, I'm my own pivots. Are you guys seeing the presenter thing, or are you seeing all my slides and my notes, just to check?
Just the presentation slides.
Yeah, just thought I should check that first off. So my own pivots. I actually started as an English student. I then very quickly at university pivoted into graphic design. When I moved to the UK, I'm originally from California as well. I've got a weird accent. I should have gotten that out of the way first. When I moved to the UK, I couldn't get a job in either of those spaces. My visa was really short term. I could get a job in fintech recruitment. So I went into a really weird technical space. Didn't like it. It's an interesting space to work in. So I jumped back again and did a master's in publishing, print publishing. Then went to work for print magazines. Did that for a little while, but I really, really liked digital stuff. I got great advice from a mentor to move over to print and digital marketing. Then when in Cornwall, moved back into the weird world of inward investment, which is how to grow industry in areas like Cornwall. From there, I went to work for a creative content agency and ran that for a few years. And then I went and I was the director at an embedded software development company, which I ran for 4 years, before founding my own non-profit organization and a women's health startup. Now, if you look at this looks like a career of about 7 different people. It doesn't really make sense. And I was kind of trying to visually show the difference between kind of on the left side, the very creative writing, liberal arts stuff, and then going further to the right, going really, really technical. And I think the thing is actually when you're looking at something like that, it's not really clear what the pivots are. I went into fintech recruitment because I couldn't get the job that I wanted and they would hire me. And I could start as a junior, I could train up. And although I didn't enjoy the company I worked at, I learned a huge amount about software development, technical skills, software languages. And it was my first step into understanding technical careers. When I was in publishing and working in print stuff, I could see the industry changing. And so I pivoted into digital marketing because I wanted to follow where the careers were going, where the industry was going, and the things I was interested in and passionate about. Now, my move from digital marketing to inward investment was not by choice. I was made redundant while I was on maternity leave, and I had to figure out how to pick myself up and do something different. And inward investment, it was an opportunity to do maternity contract, which is a great way to have a short-term fixed contract that you get to try something else at. And oftentimes for maternity cover, people are really desperate for transferable skills and experience. So it's a really good opportunity to learn. When I was there, I learned about a lot of different companies in Cornwall, which gave me a really great perspective on all the local jobs here. The creative content agency, I wasn't hired in that for my original long time ago writing skills. I was brought in there to think about how to grow it as a business, how to sell to digital clients, and how to bring in more contacts from my digital marketing experience. Also was a maternity contract cover. The two founders both went on maternity leave at the same time. So I also learned how to run a business for a year. That was not mine, which was fun. And then moving over to the director of an embedded software development company. These two couldn't be further apart from each other. There was nothing similar in culture, nothing similar in outcomes or outputs, and the teams, again, were completely different. The content agency, you might imagine, was a highly, highly female, strong team with lots of very creative people. Embedded software development is the software development within things and was extremely technical and very engineering. But the main connector between those two things was me and my skills. And that's why I was able to go to the two different things. I knew how to talk to companies. I knew how to bring on clients. I knew how to run teams. I knew how to grow those businesses and help them make money. And I brought different perspectives to both of those companies. So they were actually hiring me to come into the businesses because I had those outside ideas and thoughts. And all of this experience is what has led into what I'm able to do now as my nonprofit. It means on a regular daily basis, I write, I do graphic design, I do software development, I run teams, and I try to figure out how to make us have money. So although this looks extremely chaotic and like the career version of my ADHD, it actually does have a very clear path. And I think the big thing for me, a lot of these pivots were really critical points where I either got pushed down into the mud or found myself stuck in something I wasn't enjoying and wanted to find a way out. And I think that can be a really difficult point, is that when you are trapped there, probably not having as much fun as this little girl looks like she's having. She actually looks like she might be having a blast. But sometimes it can be really hard to pull and climb yourself back out of it. And I think that's the real critical point of what a pivot can be and why it's important. So moving back into the topic of the day, why I felt it would be nice to address why floating offshore wind is interested in women pivoting into these careers. You know, there's a lot of reasons why the industry needs more women. I think really critically, it's important that if we are going to have a renewable energy future, it should be as inclusive as possible. There's a real risk that a lot of these future technologies and a lot of the direction and strategic development of different industries, if they're too heavily male-led or just the same types of people, you're missing a lot of that understanding, perspectives, and inclusion that can bring about real, genuine innovation. That's why, you know, we might talk about other transferable skills, but they also need female engineers. They need females that do wear hard hats. You know, we need people from all backgrounds. And again, it's not just women. It's also neurodiversity, cultural backgrounds, racial backgrounds. that kind of understanding of the impact of environmental challenges can be an important part of that drive for those solutions. Also, we need more socially responsible and sustainable ideas for this. And it's been proven that women in leadership tend to have more of a focus on the why and the impact it's going to have, rather than just maybe the financial benefits of it. So again, bringing those different perspectives to it and those elements of social responsibility. And really, really importantly and bluntly, they need people. There are not enough people in flow and floating offshore wind. So they want all the people, anybody, and everybody. So it's not just, oh, they want to hire women. I said they want to hire highly skilled, talented people, and they need to be opening up where those people come from. And women can be really, really great in these positions. So I've mentioned a few times things about transferable skills, what that looks like. What actually are the powers of transferable skills? Just to be clear, transferable skills, what I'm talking about with that are the kind of soft and hard skills that can be applied across multiple industries and roles. So oftentimes transferable skills, especially when applied to women, might be talking about some more of the kind of soft skills, which is a horrible name for it. None of it's soft. Most of it's highly, highly skilled. But what people mean by that is things like communication, leadership, design, creativity. But it could also be engineering, mathematical skills, backgrounds in green energy that are in other sectors, like Olivia mentioned earlier, moving from other parts of the industry into floating offshore wind. So transferable skills isn't always a complete change of career. Sometimes it's a change of sector as well. And I think that's really important, because I feel like sometimes when we talk about women changing, we forget and make the assumptions that they haven't come from an engineering or mathematical or physics background. And it's worth saying, you know, they need women from all of these backgrounds coming in. So what are some of the, again, the power of these transferable skills? Well, people are looking, in addition to those engineering skills and some of the really obvious ones that might come in, they also do want strong skills in communication, problem solving, leadership, and really critically adaptability. So some of those kind of transferable skills, communication, again, really important for stakeholder engagement and environmental assessments. I know when I moved into a highly technical career, one of the things that they were looking for from me was my ability to translate very technical topics, subjects, and information, plans, and ideas into the language that the client wanted to speak. In this kind of sector, it's a lot of also understanding that translation potentially into communities, into neighborhoods, into other groups that might be impacted by it, and also groups that might benefit from it. And what can happen a lot of times in highly technical and engineering industries is that we create a huge amount of jargon, and we make it very hard for people to kind of understand. So a lot of that communication is around really myth busting, and helping to bring people in along on that journey, which is very difficult to do. There's also big opportunities in project management, especially around logistics. Problem solving is kind of a universal thing needed in most industries, but really especially around technical troubleshooting and really understanding how not to just solve a problem, but to move things forward. And then leadership and teamwork, really understanding and being able to bring experience in managing teams, even if they've come from other sectors, that those kinds of skills are really valuable. So again, it's also really digging into these a little bit more about what does kind of adaptability look like. So that was something else. We're talking about an industry that is just really, compared to other industries, getting started. I know Olivia mentioned how there's a long history of it, but in terms of the speed of innovation, the change and its evolution, it's changing constantly. So the ability to be able to go in and work in an industry that's constantly changing and being excited about that, that's a really important attitude to, and that kind of transferable skill as well, is your interest and ability to kind of take on new roles and potentially change a lot even within your career. Again, also cross-disciplinary collaboration. So coming from a different sector might bring in added benefits if there's opportunities for that sector to work with floating offshore wind, and having relevant knowledge of other sectors that might be impacted by it. Again, that's where something, for example, coming from an environmental background could be really valuable in this space. I was speaking to somebody else earlier who's a recent graduate, and her background is in languages, but she wants to work in an industry that is doing good. And it's, you know, again, we were talking about how language would be an incredibly transferable skill in here, the ability to be able to talk to different companies in different countries, as this is a global industry that is growing globally and has a global workforce. So also, you know, again, those leadership things, a lot of technical skills can be taught, but leadership, communication, and problem solving is something that actually you either learn over time or is a bit intuitive within the experience that you've got. So why is now a good time to pivot? Why should you be considering it today? Hopefully you are considering it by being on this call. I think, again, Olivia mentioned a few opportunities around this, but kind of that whole point about the right time to send an email. Timing is everything. The sector is still growing, so that's a perfect time to enter. It's got a huge number of talent gaps, which means that there's a lot of funding and opportunities to be able to be supported, to be able to go into those funding gaps. As I mentioned earlier, there's huge gaps in people being able to work there, so they need you, which means it's a time where you could probably move quite quickly into it, but also really critically move up quickly in it. We oftentimes talk about getting into the industry, but the nice thing about a rapidly growing industry is there's usually lots of opportunities to move up quickly within it as well, if you've got the right skills, attitude, and opportunities. Sorry, my very environmentally friendly office keeps telling me that I'm not moving enough, and it keeps turning my lights off on me. I am here. Sorry, I'm a little dark. But the other thing is, again, that growth mindset. So it's a really great opportunity to be able to move if you're looking for something different and new and you want to grow in your own personal development. And again, with all these opportunities, a lot of that support that's available is free. So oftentimes in pre-existing industries and places that are harder to get into, you might have to spend huge amounts of money to get training to be able to move into those sectors. Right now, because there is such a push to get more people into these spaces, there's not only training to get into it, there's training to progress in it. So you can take advantage of the training to get in, but then there's also management support courses. There's opportunities to then be able to grow within the industry as well. And that's something that I think is really exciting and isn't available in all engineering sectors right now. So it can be really scared when we talk about changing and moving into a new role. I think the really important thing is acknowledging that that's really normal. Like, it's not, most people aren't super excited about constantly changing jobs or taking on a new career or making a big leap into a new role. The average person, male or female, finds change terrifying. So I think it's really normal to be afraid, but that doesn't mean that should stop you. Acknowledging that pivoting can be intimidating can help you just talk about the beast and go, okay, yeah, cool, this is scary. Now what can I put into place to help me overcome those fears? How can I talk to people that might reassure me that, no, this is a good move to take and it'll be okay? Also letting people know, oh, I'm a little bit nervous about it, might open them up to say, oh, well, what's worrying you? How could I alleviate those fears? How could I share my own experiences to tell you that you've got nothing to worry about? Or maybe the thing that you're worried about is something that the company could fix and improve on. Also remember that, this isn't just fear, it's also growth. So it's really, really difficult to grow if you don't fail. This was something really that I learned a lot moving into the software world, and especially from the engineering background, is I didn't realize how much in that sector they embrace failure, that the world of innovation and growth really embraces change and failure, that you don't have to be perfect and you don't have to be right. And in fact, I was regularly encouraged to push myself beyond my comfort zone to show what was possible, even if it didn't go quite right. So that in itself can be really terrifying, the idea that you're going to spend a lot of time doing something and it won't work. But actually realizing that that is a critical part of learning, and that's fine. It's not kind of what you failed on, it's what you do next with what went wrong. And I think one of the ways to do that, and what I found useful, I don't like failing at all. It really, really makes me nervous. So one of the ways that I've tried to overcome it is by doing it in small chunks. So I do a lot of pilot projects with Tech Women, where we'll try something and it'll be really small. My idea is I want to have this huge, big program that will last for 5 years, but I'll try with one event and see, okay, do people like it? What are they thinking about it? What's the feedback? What can I improve on, and how can I do it better? So that way, if it goes well, I can learn from it. And if it fails, I haven't completely failed everything. I just messed up on something that I can grow with. And that's been really, really useful for me. So at this point, we started talking about fear and failure. It's worth bringing up the term imposter syndrome. I get a little bit funny about it. It's mentioned a lot. What it basically is, if you haven't heard of it, is the feeling that you're not qualified or deserving of your success, despite evidence to the contrary. So a lot of the work that we do with women to help them get into tech is helping to overcome this. We run courses that help women explore new digital careers. And I am always shocked at the caliber of people that come on the course, not because they're so good, but more that they're on my course. I look at them and kind of go, you're amazing. Why are you here? You could be in any job. And it's usually because they're worried they're not good enough to go into the job. They're worried that they might not have the right background, the right experience. They might not be the right age. Either too young or often too old. Oftentimes they've talked themselves out of things. One of the things that makes me a bit worried about imposter syndrome is that it sometimes is presented as something that we are born with and that we have, and that's our fault. There's a really great article I read a few years ago in the Harvard Business Review that looked at imposter syndrome as a learned problem. And I thought that really resonated with me. When you're a small child, you often believe anything is possible. You can literally be president or take over the world. And yet, as you get older, time and time again, your view and your opportunities and your belief in yourself gets smaller and smaller. And that's usually because other people have told you, oh, you can't do that, or that's not possible. And so it's worth remembering that imposter syndrome is real and a lot of people feel it, but it's not your fault. You don't have imposter syndrome because you're not good enough. Oftentimes we have imposter syndrome because we've had terrible bosses that make us feel weak. We've had opportunities, or we've gone onto experiences where we haven't been made to feel included and welcomed, and we've internalized that. So I can't cover all of it in a slide or two. It's a really deep and complex thing, but it's worth exploring, acknowledging, kind of recognizing it, and then calling it out. So making sure you're not letting it get in the way. So a few tips, and again, this is the very tip of the iceberg. There's lots of really awesome coaches and papers and articles and courses on this, but a couple of tips are, first and foremost, making sure you make huge long lists of all of the awesome things that you've done. So focusing on the strengths and the skills that you already have. When you're thinking about the one thing you can't do, sometimes we forget about the 20 other things you can do. Also seeking out mentorship. So I find that actually I'm pretty good at reminding my team of all the things they're awesome at when they put themselves down. And finding a mentor that will call you out on your imposter syndrome and remind you that you're great, that can be really helpful. They can also help you discover the things that you're amazing at that you might have forgotten about or might not realize is valuable. And that kind of shift of your mindset too. I remember when I took on the role of being the chair at the board, I almost didn't take it on. I was terrified. I was like, there is no way. I have no business chairing a board. I don't even know what they do. But I had a really great coach who said to me, that no one knows what they do when they chair a board. They just do it, and that every chair does it differently. And it was a or as a board I didn't get paid to be on. So what were they going to do? Fire me? I wasn't getting paid anyways. So I went and did it, and it was fine. But I needed that coach to kind of remind me and say, it's okay to not know what you're doing. It's okay to not be an expert at it. It's okay to say to people, I don't know that answer. Let me look it up and let me find it out and let me figure out how to answer it. In fact, it's much better than just making something up because you don't want to look stupid. But just shifting that mindset and kind of being really honest and saying to people like, oh, that's a really great question. Let me come back to you on that. Is a really nice way to make sure that you've got the chance to learn. And again, that positive self-talk, kind of replacing I don't belong here with I'm here to contribute. I'm going to learn. And maybe I'm not an expert here yet, but I belong here because I'm moving into this space. It's worth remembering, learning something new. Nobody's an expert right away at anything new. And again, working in embedded software teams, a lot of people get really nervous about going into that space, but I can tell you they were making mistakes all the time, especially ones that have been working in the industry for 20 years. They usually made more mistakes. It was the new people that were learning that were so terrified of making mistakes that were usually doing a pretty perfect job. So it's, nobody's perfect, and they just often act like they are. So that's the other thing too, is just remembering that a lot of people are facing this, and a lot of people have this challenges around self-belief too. So making sure that you're not putting these unrealistic expectations on yourself to be amazing, especially at the start of a pivot journey, and letting yourself be open to change. So I'm going to move on from that because otherwise I'll spend all day on it and start to get a little bit too deep into it. So how do you actually and practically make this move? This has got a lot of bullet points on it. It was basically because I didn't want to over summarize it, because it's hopefully one of the most actionable points of the talk. So I think the first thing is to really take stock of your current transferable skills. So making a list of all the skills that you've got. Your CV is a really nice place to do this. Have you refreshed it? Have you looked at it? Even if you're not looking for a new job, making sure that you update it. People are really bad at keeping their CV up to date. And actually that can be really useful. Publishing your experience on LinkedIn as well can be really useful. Making sure that you're taking and including your interests, your experience, and your learning and your training, not just formal qualifications too. So reminding yourself of those kinds of things. But yeah, really writing down those skills, including the quote unquote soft skills as well. And seeing a really not long, nice list of what you're good at can be really helpful. But then also when looking at that, look at the things that you enjoy, the things that inspire you, the things you find interesting, the things that spark curiosity and you'd want to do more of, and then research those roles that could match with those skills. So what are those opportunities when floating offshore wind where you can not only be interested in the topic, but also gives you those opportunities to grow, or bring on other skills that you're interested in, or promote your career, and trying to see how you can do matching with that. Getting additional training where needed, looking at Olivia's long list that she's promised everyone on all the different training options. That can really help with overcoming imposter syndrome too. There's nothing like going on a course and walking into the room and realizing that you know more than the other people in the room to make you feel better and kind of knock that little beast into the corner. Also, networking with people in the industry. Again, as Olivia mentioned, it can be really great. What's wonderful about women in most tech and engineering spaces is there are a lot of women in X industries and places. So I noticed when I was working on this presentation and checking a few different things, there are women in wind, there's women in offshore, there's women in green energy. There are so many different groups you can be a part of. And that's really nice for one, networking, finding out about jobs, but also too, just support, especially if you end up going into a role where you're potentially one of the only women on the team. It's really nice to know that there's other women elsewhere. mentorship is also really important in these spaces, and it can be really useful for making sure that you're building the right relationships and getting good advice. Volunteering, I mentioned earlier, taking small steps, you know, whether it's volunteering or temporary contracts. Again, I'm a really big fan of maternity leave contracts because it gives you a chance to try out somebody else's job for a little bit, and then you get a really good reason to leave. And go on and do something else. But it lets you kind of test out a employer to see if you would enjoy working there. And it lets you check something else out. And oftentimes when you are doing a maternity leave contract, it's very difficult to find good maternity cover. So you don't have to have 90% of all the things that the job requires. They might be interested if you can kind of just hold the fort down until that person can come back. So it can be a really great opportunity to do a step up into a role that's above what you're currently ready for, while you're getting a chance to be able to benefit from all of the amazing work that the person you're covering for has been putting into that role. When they come back to you, you might have a wonderful opportunity to be able to learn from them. So it's a way of being able to learn from another woman that's in the sector as well. And then the other thing is just being really curious and adaptable, be open to learning new skills, and remember that there's a big value on actually people who can bridge different gaps. Interestingly, I'm just remembering one thing I didn't put on here, or on the overcoming imposter syndrome thing, but is also when you are pivoting to a new role, if you're looking at that job description and you're going, oh my gosh, I don't have a lot of that on there. Don't let that stop you if you have the core parts of it. Oftentimes, job descriptions are written by managers who are trying to capture literally everything they can possibly think of in their mind, but they don't need it. Most of the job descriptions I see too, again, aren't probably possible to be done by a single person. They're kind of a brain dump of all the things that that person needs. So really dig into it and know that men often apply for a role if they meet 60 to 70% of the requirements on that job. Most women need to be at 90 to 95% to apply for it. If you meet 60% of it, at least you might find out if you can go to the interview, go along, see if you like it, have a go at it. The worst that can happen is they'll get to know you and they might have other roles that are relevant for it. The other thing you can do too is if you realize that some of those things that you don't have are really critical, you can talk to the employer and say, oh, okay, great. How would you recommend I go about getting that particular skill? Is there some training I could go on that I could get and then come back and apply for this job again? And again, they might be so impressed by that answer that they want to bring you on and help you get that training to come in and do the job. But as Olivia mentioned earlier, people are really desperate for people in this role. So don't count stuff out if you don't have 100% of what it says you need to have. So what's next? Again, start small, identify one area of interest in flow that aligns with your skills and begin researching roles within that space. Taking that first step, whether it's enrolling in a course, you're already attending an industry event, so well done. But also, you know, applying for informal interviews, having a chance to talk to other people in the industry, and getting that feedback and insight from external people in terms of where you might fit in as well. And joining those communities, so getting involved with professional networks and just continuing to keep learn. So I'm going to end on kind of just reiterating, chances are, especially if you're on this call, you probably already have extremely valuable skills. The next step is just to really believe in your ability to turn those into a pivot. And I probably haven't said this enough. I'm sure it's every single slide, but the industry is really hiring. So it's worth kind of taking that leap and seeing where you land.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. That was amazing. Brilliant stuff. Everyone can go and do their research on Tech Women now and see all the fabulous events you've got going on. I think we will hold questions until the Q&A section at the end, if that is okay with everyone, just so that we can fit in all of our lovely guest speakers. So now Caitlin has given us the how to move into the sector and given you a bit of confidence into pivoting into new roles. We can now take a little look at what new roles might look like with our next two guest speakers. So we have the fabulous Michelle Hitches from Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult, who will be doing a little bit of a talk on her own career and the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult and the different kinds of things that they've got going on over there. So Michelle, I think you can take control and then you can move your own.
Would you mind doing the slides, Olivia, only because it'll send my computer into a technical nightmare.
No problem at all.
And as you heard that, I assume that my mic's working now. Do you want to go to the next slide? Thank you. So I definitely don't have the conventional route. I don't have any A levels. I didn't go to university. So I left school at 16 with just my GCSEs. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I found exams really stressful, so decided to go to the local college and undertake a business administration NVQ just to give me a kind of foundation skill. But it also meant I didn't have to do any exams, that I could actually sort of do on the job activities rather than having to sit there and get stressed out just before exams. I really loved this course, but what it really did for me is it opened my eyes on how much you have to push yourself to get what you want. It was obviously my first experience of not having a teacher tell you what to do. You really had to study and do your own thing. So after that, then I went straight into the world of work. Olivia, could you go on, please? So I started my career working in an arcade. When I started it, it was really just to save some money, buy a car, get on the road and get out and about. But what I didn't realise was it was actually going to give me the skills that I was going to use throughout my whole career. So from customer service, finance, project management, these are all elements that I've taken all the way through my life from that very first job when I was 18. So I first decided to go down the finance route. I had a passion for it, so I went to work for Barclays Bank. I did that for a couple of years, but then I realised that I really missed engaging with the public. So what do you do after you go to work for Barclays Bank? You go and run a pub. So that's what I did. I did that for a few years, did a bit of web design on the side as well. And then I did that until I had my first daughter. And then I moved into the construction industry to follow my love for project management. So everything from looking at a piece of land, working out how much you could pay for it to still make a profit on the houses after you've built them, working with the building contractors, and then working with the agents to sell the houses and meeting the new owners. After I did that, the recession hit. So I went to work at our local college where I'd actually studied my NVQ. I worked there for 11 years and used all of my finance and project management skills then to deliver all of their externally funded programs. And I also did some accountancy lecturing there whilst I was there. And then after 11 years at the college, I took a random leap to jump into the renewable energy sector when it came to Wales. It was really scary. I even went from full-time to part-time when I first moved because I thought the opportunity was that good. And I'm really glad I did. Do you want to go on, Olivia? So now I work for the Offshore Renewable Energy Catapult. That is the UK's leading technology, innovation and research centre for offshore renewable energy. We basically work with UK companies and help them to accelerate their growth and really look at their technology, whether it's an idea, we can help them research that idea and make it better, or we can work with them to build a prototype, or if they've got a prototype, then we can help them test it to make it commercially available so that they can go into the sector. Can you go on, Olivia? So we've got offices all around the UK. So I'm based in Little Pembroke Dock in Wales, but actually we've got them in North Wales, we've got them in Hale in Cornwall, we've got them in Plymouth, and then we've got them, our big testing assets in Blyth and Aberdeen. Our headquarters is in Glasgow. We've got an office in Lowestoft. So you can see that it doesn't particularly matter where you live, you can still work in the sector. And I work on projects all across the UK. Yes, I do a bit of traveling, but it's my choice to do that. So that's fine. So if you don't know what a catapult is, there's a catapult of 9. There's a catapult network of 9 catapults, and we all have the same mission to sort of grow innovation, but all are in a different sector. So we've got some looking at high value manufacturing, some looking at energy systems, medical, so in any kind of discipline. Would you like to move on? So my current role is I'm a senior project manager and future energy system strategy lead, which is quite a mouthful, but basically what that means is that I manage projects all across the UK looking at the integration of offshore wind into hydrogen energy systems. So even though the webinar today is about the offshore wind side, there's many different roles that come alongside that offshore wind, and I have one of those. So I look at onshore and offshore production of hydrogen, technical challenges, the public perception of hydrogen. A lot of people think how dangerous it is and don't want it anywhere near them. And then obviously the policy and regulation challenges and the health and safety concerns. So I'll just talk about a couple of our projects to try and bring that to life. So we've got the Milford Haven Hydrogen Kingdom project, which has recently kicked off here in Milford Haven, and that's looking at the offshore hydrogen production. So that will literally be on a floating wind platform, and the hydrogen will be created out there, and then it'll be piped inland into a substation, and then into what we're hoping to be the Highline Cymru pipeline, which will be from Pembroke Dock then all the way up to Swansea, and then hopefully by 2050 it'll be further along as well, but that's what our initial aim is to. And then if I talk about the hydrogen cost reduction project, so this is onshore hydrogen production, but still powered from offshore winds, but the electricity will come on into land, then we'll create the hydrogen onshore, and then we're looking at how we can integrate that into the Northern Gas Networks pipeline, the gas pipeline then that runs all around England. So where am I today? So you might think it's strange. I've gone from just leaving school with my GCSEs to being a hydrogen specialist in the offshore renewable energy sector. And I won't lie, it's been a lot of hard work. But my top tip would be if you pick the right organisation to work for with the right values, it's the values that really matter. They will support you through it. So I sit here today, I'm a qualified accountant, I've got a level 9 in project management, I'm a hydrogen specialist, and tomorrow hopefully I will sit my last exam and finish my Masters in Renewable Energy. And I couldn't have done this with the support of the organisations that I've worked for and my friends and family. I'm just going to have a few final thoughts. So there isn't one pathway to bring you into the sector. There's definitely going to be challenges on the way, but it's how you deal with those challenges is what really counts. It doesn't matter how you progress into the sector, the skills that you've picked up along the way is what will help you make your mark. And opportunities will arise, and don't be scared to take them. Sometimes change is a really good thing. So I've been at the Catapult for 5 years now, but in the next couple of weeks, I'll be leaving the Catapult and I will be going to take up a new role with Apollo Engineering. And you may have noticed at the beginning, I didn't introduce myself with my job title. And I think this is quite a big thing that I've noticed across the sector is you're not known for your job title. You're really known for who you are, the interactions you make with people, and delivering on the promises that you make. So never think that you can't apply for a job because the job title sounds too important or not enough. It's really about you as a person. And that's it from me, Amelia. Oh, Olivia, sorry.
That's okay. Everyone gets our names mixed up. It doesn't help we sit right next to each other.
I know.
So fabulous. So as Michelle said, the Catapult are more of a research organisation, and our next guest speaker, Emily Summers, is from a developer, Simply Blue. So Emily, if you want to do your own slides, you can take control. at the
I've
top.
never actually done that. Let me give it a. Hold
There we
on.
go.
Oh, okay, amazing. And you can't see. Oh, I didn't have any notes anyway. Amazing. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So as Olivia said, I work for a company called Simply Blue Group, and we are blue economy project developers, mainly working on offshore renewable energy projects. So we predominantly develop offshore wind projects, but we're also involved in the production of sustainable hydrogen and e-fuels. And we have sustainable aquaculture projects, as well as something we call the deeper blue economy, which is looking at new opportunities like co-location of offshore projects, sustainable seaweed farming, carbon capture and storage, and wave and tidal. So we're headquartered in Cork, and we have offices in Cork and Dublin in Ireland. And then in the UK, we have offices in Pembrokeshire in Wales, in Edinburgh in Scotland, and then the Newquay office, which is where I work from. And then we also have offices globally, including in Spain and in Canada. So yeah, as I said, I work in the offshore wind part of Simply Blue Group, working mainly on floating offshore wind projects. And I work from Newquay and I live in North Cornwall. Amazing. So I wanted to give an introduction to one of the projects that I work on in the region. So Erebus is a 100 megawatt test and demonstration floating offshore wind project. Back in 2019, it was a little bit different how we found our site compared to the way that the Crown Estate have found the PDAs now. So back then it was plan-led. So as a developer, we actually screened the region, modelling over 30 different constraints like different seabirds and mammals, the shipping density and fishing density in the region, including technical constraints like the type of seabed in the region and the distance to shore for our grid connection. And that's how we got to what is now the Erebus project site boundary. So Erebus is located approximately 40 kilometres off the coast of Pembrokeshire. The offshore export cable goes to a landfall at West Angle Bay, and our grid connection is at the Pembroke 132 kV substation. So the project will be 7 14 megawatt class wind turbines on semi-submergible wind float platforms. And you can see an image of what that might look like in the bottom right-hand corner there. So Erebus is the first fully consented, that's meant to say consented, not consenting, sorry, but typo. Erebus is the first fully consented floating offshore wind farm in the Celtic Sea, and hopefully there'll be a few more very soon. And so our aim is that Erebus, as a test and demonstration project, will hopefully pave the way for these larger commercial scale floating offshore wind projects that are coming in the Celtic Sea. So even after the 4.5 gigawatt leasing round that's coming, that Olivia was speaking about earlier, in the government's recent report, that the slide Olivia shared with the kind of green hashed area in the Celtic Sea, is promising, because it means that there's likely going to be a lot more projects in the pipeline very soon. So we're hoping that this sort of smaller project will help the region get the supply chain ready. So ports readiness, like getting prepared for the commercial scale projects, and very relevant skills in the getting skills ready in the area, and also prove that the technology works in the region and de-risk for the bigger projects. So here's a picture of Erebus in relation to the 3 PDAs, just so you can get an idea of where it's located in the region. Oh, I've gone next. That's fine. Okay, so jobs. So in June 2023, the Offshore Wind Industry Council published a report called the Offshore Wind Skills Intelligence Report. These figures are for the whole of the UK, not just for the Southwest region, and are for all offshore wind, not just floating. I've noticed actually that those figures are slightly wrong. Sorry, I think I sent you an old version. So they've been updated, and actually it's forecasted that we're going to need slightly more. So I think it's required that there's going to be over 100,000 jobs by 2030. So using those numbers and doing a quick calculation, we're going to need over 11,000 new people every year until 2030 in the offshore wind industry across the UK. So as has already been mentioned today, there is a very clear need here for people to join the industry. So I've thrown a few slides in here next so that you can get an idea of the scale of what we're putting into the water. So here's a 14 megawatt turbine in comparison to some landmarks in London. These slides have been shared and have been used for Welsh schools quite a lot, which is why there are a lot of Welsh landmarks in there as well. But as you can see, compared to the Shard in London, our 14 megawatt turbine isn't far off the same height, which is crazy when you think about it. So here's a picture of a drag embedment anchor. These are what anchor the turbine and the platform to the seabed. So there'll be between 3 and 6 of these anchors holding the system in place. And as you can see, compared to the size of the worker, these are huge. And they're just one part of the system holding one turbine up. And then I think on the next slide, here's a picture of the semi-submersible platform on a dockyard. And you can sort of see the size of it compared to that boat there on the left-hand side. So no wonder we need so many jobs to design, manufacture, transport, and build and install these things, because they are massive. Okay, so what sort of careers are there in offshore wind? I've listed just some of them on this slide that I could think of, but there's so many more. I think it's important to note that so many of these skills are transferable, which again has already been spoken about today. So you don't need to have studied renewable energy, offshore wind, or even the marine sectors to get the marine sciences to get a job in the sector. And you don't need to be an engineer. There's lots of different roles to suit a wide spread of interests and skills. So we're going to need project managers, developers like myself, policymakers. We need innovation and research and development and original equipment manufacturers. So the people who actually design and make the turbines and the anchors and the platforms and the moorings. Yes, we do need engineers, but we need digital and data analysts. We need robotics, software developments, and that should say health and safety, not heal and safety. And then, yeah, we need scientists, biologists, ornithologists, ecologists, geologists, people to go out on the boats and do the surveys, check that the seabed is good for floating offshore wind, and that we adhere to like environmental constraints. We need marine and port skills. So again, people to go out and actually be on the boats or to build what we need at the port and build the ports, crane operators and drivers and divers as well. Yeah, again, you know, more general skills. So administrators and business managers, lawyers, HR, comms. There's just, it's endless, the amount of skills that we need to make these things happen. Okay, so I was asked to speak a little bit about my route into the industry, and I also thought I'd spotlight some of my colleagues that I work closely with in my team. So I do have a technical background. I did physics as my undergraduate degree, but when I finished that, I really had a moment of, oh dear, what now? I had just kind of wanted to finish my degree, and I hadn't given a lot of thought to the what next and what job that I wanted to do. So many of my friends got into computer programming or into finance, and it was great, but it's not quite what I wanted. So I actually ended up working in an opticians for a while I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do sort of long term. And I did a lot of research, and I'd thought about renewables already, and it seemed like a good fit for me. I wanted to use my kind of scientific and technical background for something good, like to make a difference. And I'd always loved nature and the outdoors, so renewables seemed like a good fit. And then in my research, I came across floating offshore wind and thought, oh, what's that? Like, that sounds really cool. And I found Simply Blue Group. But I didn't know how to get that foot in the door, I suppose. So in the end, I actually wrote a letter. I did write quite a few emails and I didn't hear back from a lot of companies. I wrote an email to Simply Blue, but actually what got their attention is I wrote like a physical letter and sent it to the head office. And I had written it, directed it to, I'd gone on the website and looked at the directors. And I actually chose the one woman that was on the board of directors at the time, because I thought she sounded really impressive, and I thought that maybe she'd get back to me. And luckily enough, she did. And then they offered me an internship. So I took a 6-month internship with Simply Blue, and I loved it. And it kind of confirmed, yeah, this is what I want to do with my career. I then went back to university and did a master's in sustainable energy engineering before then coming back to Simply Blue. And I've been there now for over 2 years in a full-time role. And I've really enjoying it. So quickly I'll run through kind of the other people in my team who I work quite closely with, because I think it shows, again, the diversity that we need in a team. This isn't everyone. This is just a few people I thought I'd sort of spotlight. So Kerry is the portfolio director for offshore wind in Simply Blue, and she's also the project development manager and engagement manager for Blue Gen Wind, who are the company that's working on Erebus. So her background is in marine renewable energy. So when she applied to Simply Blue Group, and this is actually, I think, an interesting point that maybe I'll touch on in the next slide when I go on to some sort of tips to get into the industry. But when she applied for the role, she actually applied for a role that was advertised for an engineer and technical background. And she doesn't have that. And she went into the interview and said, an engineer doesn't need to do this role. And since then, she got the job. And since then, like, her career has just exploded. She's the director not only in Simply Blue, but on the board for loads of different boards now, including RUK, Renewable UK. So she's done really well. And it just took that moment of confidence to say, actually, no, it doesn't need to be an engineer. I can do this job just as well. And she's done absolutely fantastically. So Julius, he's the director of engineering in Simply Blue and also the technical manager in Blue Gen Wind. And his background is mechanical engineering. And then Sean is our head of consenting. His background is in marine biology and ecology, and has had a number of environmental policy roles, including delivering environmental impact assessment and HRAs. And then George is the consenting manager and environmental expert, and he has a background in marine ecology and environmental impact assessments. So, and that's just a few of the people in our role in our team. So this is my last slide. I'll finish on some top tips to kind of get into the industry and start off your career. I just want to caveat that these have very much just come from my own brain, and therefore they're very much based on my own experience in the sector. A lot of this has been said already today, which is great. So some of it might be a bit repetitive, but it kind of just goes to show that we've all had similar experiences, which is interesting. And actually, what Caitlin said earlier that I picked up on is she mentioned finding a mentor. I have a mentor. I've had two in my 2 years in my career, and I found it really beneficial. Having someone that's outside your company that you can speak to, and they just genuinely get advice on what you're working on at the moment. And the big part of that is giving you a bit of a confidence boost. And when you go and say, oh, I've been given this opportunity, but I don't know if like I'm the right person for it and if I'm going to do a very good job. And then for them to sort of turn around and say, you're absolutely the right person and you'll be fine, just kind of gives you that confidence boost. So yeah, that ties in with my first top tip, which is confidence. I kind of think sometimes like sort of fake it till you make it, like just for a moment in time anyway, like have that confidence to put yourself out there, reach out to other people in the industry. What's the worst that could happen if you apply for a role, or if you reach out to someone, like send a letter, an email, or on LinkedIn, like they're going to say no, or they're not going to get back to you. It's really not the end of the world. And it can really pay off by doing that. Another point, it's a really, floating offshore wind is a really new, innovative industry, and renewables in general. So everyone is learning and nobody knows everything. So even people high up in companies and directors, like trial and error. And as Caitlin said, like people make mistakes and it's encouraged to do that. So it's a great industry to get into because actually nobody knows anything, so you're in the same boat. And again, this is repetitive from what's been said earlier, but apply for that job role even if you don't tick all the boxes. It has been shown in studies that men will, if there's a list of 10 requirements for a job role, men are more likely to apply for that job role if they tick, I didn't mean to do that, sorry, if they tick 3 of the boxes out of the 10, and women are more likely to apply if they tick all the boxes, or not apply if they don't tick all the boxes. So I think again, what's the worst that can happen? Apply for the job role, like Kerry did when she applied for an engineering job, not being an engineer and getting it anyway. So yeah, have the confidence to just put yourself out there and do that. The second one, hugely important, I've found, is build a network. So, you're already doing the right thing by joining events like this, where you can learn about the different careers in the industry. I think building a network is so important. If you're looking for a new job role, you have people that you can kind of reach out to and they can help you with that and see what's going on in where they're working. But also, if I'm stuck on something, I know that I can go to speak to my friends that work in Regen, or my friends that work in survey companies, and they can help me out. So having a network is really important. And it's great when going to conferences to see some friendly faces too. The third one is gain experience. So early on in your career, like it's fantastic to say yes to almost everything and scoop up all of the opportunities that come your way. That's how you learn, and that's how you gain the experience. But also, and this is something that I've struggled with trying to get better on, is knowing when to say no as well. I think you can get so excited, like wanting to say, yes, I'll do that and I'll do that and do that. And then before you know it, you're drowning in workload. So I think knowing which opportunities to take, that is going to give you energy and benefit your career and where you want to go, but also that it is okay to say no when it's not right for you. And the final one is show genuine interest and passion. I think, being inquisitive and being passionate will go a long way with companies. Like companies will know that you're taking a change of career, or you're a graduate, or you're more junior, but will more than likely be willing to train you if they think that you're eager to learn and you're going to work hard. Again, been mentioned earlier, but stay informed. I think this industry in particular is so fast paced and things change month to month. Policies changing rapidly at the moment, which is really exciting. There's a lot of grid reform going on. And then, because it's an innovative industry, there's new technology coming out all the time and improvements made. So stay informed as much as you can with all of that going on. And finally, my final point is do something you love. I think it's really important, particularly in this industry, and the last 2 years for renewables hasn't been the easiest. And things have slowed down a bit, and now they're starting to look a lot more positive again. But through that time when things don't go your way, having that resilience to, like has already been said, to pick yourself up and carry on. It's so much easier to do that if you believe in what you're doing and you're doing something that you love. That's all from me. I think I'll pass back to Olivia for any questions.
Fab, thank you so much, and thank you to all 3 of our guest speakers. You've all been amazing. I think we've had really great top tips for getting into the industry, building your confidence, overcoming that imposter syndrome, gaining those mentors and networking, and building your own skills and experience to be able to pivot into those new roles. And hopefully, for everyone that's attended the session, it's given you a bit of an overview of what the sector's like and how it's changing, and then giving you an example of how you can build those skills and how you can pivot into those new roles, and then what those roles actually look like with 2 really different organisations that are both really central to offshore wind. So we're going to throw the floor open now to anyone that's got any questions for any of our guest speakers. I think Caitlin's on a call, but she's going to try and pop back in for the session. So if you have any questions for Caitlin, maybe pop them in the chat. But we're going to throw the session open. So if anyone wants to raise their hand using the hand raise function, then just unmute yourself and yeah. I will share everything on LinkedIn. I'll also send out to everyone the slides and my big long list of free courses in Cornwall. And for anyone who is in Cornwall, please get in contact with me so that you can claim your free courses to kind of build your sector knowledge a little bit more and hopefully help you step into new roles.
Olivia.
Yeah, hi.
There's a question around conferences and events about what would we recommend to attend. I only wanted to make a comment there that you'll most probably find there isn't many in Cornwall and Wales around the Celtic Sea, but don't be scared to travel up the line, because they will talk about the area. It's just they tend to be based in the bigger cities. That's all I wanted to mention there.
Fab. Thank you for picking up on that. I didn't even see that question back there. Yeah, a lot of the courses online, just to pick up on Gabriella's point, a lot of the courses that I'll be providing are online courses, so it's maybe like 2 hours of training a week, and then you can do that kind of thing. Rebecca, hi.
Kind of just a question. So I partly work in wind already. And one of the things I see from the list of jobs and things is some of them still do require maybe a degree or actually some experience. And the floating offshore wind sector is going to be bringing in, or is that transfer of jobs you talked about from high fossil fuel sectors is going to be a lot of oil and gas kind of skills. And a lot of those are presently, it's quite male dominated world from my experience of being in it. So there's, how do we as a community of people here, because I think this is a fantastic forum, and like there's a lot of energy here that could go forwards into something else, which would be fantastic. So how do we kind of also help provide those opportunities for experience when there is that sort of maybe, so embedded knowledge perhaps is more in the male space, I would say. And I've got some experience from this also from being a commercial skipper. So as well as being an engineer in renewables, I'm a commercial skipper. So in that space, we as women have also struggled in times to actually have the ability to even develop the experience, because you're not selected or put forward, or you don't have the confidence to step into those spaces.
I mean, I'll just make a brief point and then you guys feel free to jump in as well. Is also having that confidence to put yourself in positions where you're developing experience is the key one. As Caitlin said, that imposter syndrome can sometimes hold us back, and not being afraid to put yourself in positions where you can gain a bit of experience in a sector that maybe is male dominated. But also the value of apprenticeships. I think the apprenticeship market is really shifting now. So it used to be quite dominated with younger people, and now we're actually seeing a lot of people retraining in apprenticeship roles. So maybe that is a key way that you can gain experience in a new sector, while also having the support of mentorship and having, it being paid as well is great. But that can maybe help you build up the experiences you need to move into new roles. So definitely look into apprenticeships near you in the sector that you're interested in, and you might find something really interesting that can support you.
Yeah, thank you, Rebecca, because I think that really interesting and important points that you've made there. And I agree. I think I'm the only female engineer at the moment in the company, and it can be intimidating sometimes to join calls where you're the only woman. And again, going to these conferences, quite often, there's not many women around, and we see a lot what we call manels, which is only men on a panel discussing offshore wind or whatever. And I think we have a long way to go, because young people coming into the sector and seeing that still and not seeing the representation, I think subconsciously sometimes can feel like, should I not be here? I don't know, and it's tricky. So I guess as women, what we can do is to try and get our voices heard, and to try and take these opportunities and be that representation that we so badly need. And I think as developers, just being conscious of it and reaching out as much as possible we can to schools and universities, and encouraging women to get into the sector, and events like this today. I really hope, especially with the leasing round at the moment and the requirement of social value, that this sort of thing is considered to kind of encourage women into the roles. So I hope we see that shift more so than we have already. Fingers crossed anyway.
You're on mute.
I was on mute, yeah. I'm not sure if Caitlin's back with us yet, or Michelle, if you have anything to add.
I've literally just come back, but I don't know what the question was, so I'll let Michelle go first.
I was only going to follow on from Emily to say, there's loads of initiatives at the moment to try and get girls into STEM and to get them into different renewable programs. So we have one in Wales, which is called Destination Renewables. So that's where someone from the sector comes in once a week to talk about the different opportunities. And I believe that's just been rolled out now in Cornwall as well, which is great. But for the people, that are past school and university age, I think it's going back to what Emily said about what Kerry did. If you see a job that you want, don't be scared to go for it, and make the case as why you think that you're good enough to do it. You can't guarantee that you'd get an interview, but there might be something about you doing that makes them put you through.
And for me as well, on that point, I think a company that turns around and says, yeah, great, let's give you a chance, is one I'd want to work for. And if I don't hear back, or if a company says, no, you're not qualified, we don't want you, it's not, and I say, okay, fine, I probably wouldn't work for them. You wouldn't want to in that case.
Olivia, is it worth me just saying a little bit about what we do? I didn't hear the original question. I came on right as you said, is Caitlin there?
So the question was about developing experiences that in sectors that might be male dominated, as a lot of transferable skills might be coming from the oil and gas industry, and where we can find those experiences as women.
Great. So I mentioned in my talk about the kind of volunteer experiences. So this isn't necessarily the level of what Michelle or Emily kind of suggested, but in addition to other elements or other ways in, we, as a nonprofit that does things to try to help girls get into technology, engineering, and creative digital spaces, we sometimes have events, we have different workshops, we have festivals, we have different opportunities. So if you wanted a chance to just be able to do some networking while also doing good, we do have we're always welcome volunteers to come along and support on those. So we can let you know when those are kind of coming up. We're pretty active on social media. And again, if you're interested in volunteering in that, please let us know. Again, it's not necessarily going to give you the technical skills for the role, but it could be really helpful in terms of the networking side of things. And the other bit as well in terms of Confident in courses. So we run a free course. It's actually just starting. If you happen to have to live in Cornwall this term, it's SPF funded, so it's got pretty strict requirements. Future ones might not have that restriction. We could even let in people from Devon. But on this one, if you are in the area and you want to explore some of the other digital skills, we don't have anything specifically on green energy, but we do have things on data, we have things on AI, we have things on cybersecurity, we have things on software development, all of which Emily pointed out are roles within the sector itself that aren't necessarily the engineering ones. But if you're interested in any of those, our Digital Uplift course starting next week, you can still get in technically. I can let you in, so you can still get in, but it's an online anytime course. So we set it up for people to be able to do while they're still in work. All the videos are pre-recorded. All the lessons can be done in your own time. There's no pass fail. It's just a chance for you to have a go and try and learn about what the different skills are. We don't expect people to be good at all of them. We kind of figure there'll be one thing that you'll go, oh, I like this, I want to do more of this. And previous graduates from the program have gone into a wide variety of different things. Some have gone into the data teams on the council, some have gone into cybersecurity, some have gone into digital marketing. One person's gone into AI for a water company to try to improve their water, basically not dumping. And so there's lots of different pathways that people have gone into with it. We also have a big session on overcoming imposter syndrome, improving your CV, how to use LinkedIn, do networking, and we can team people up with mentors. So some of those bits that we talked about today that can support moves into it, we can help with that on the Digital Uplift program, and then potentially hopefully work also with some of the people on it to try to be mentors. If you're on this call and you work in the sector and you want to be a mentor, let us know as well.
Thanks so much, Caitlin. I think that really leads quite nicely into the next question we have, actually, because Katie's put in, where do we go to find events and conferences? Well, organisations like Caitlin's that work locally probably will be advertising quite a lot too. LinkedIn is such a good platform for pretty much everything. Looking for jobs, looking for conferences, looking for training. There's so much on LinkedIn. I'm not sponsored by LinkedIn, I promise, but it's kind of the holy grail for me. So yeah, Katie, just keep up on LinkedIn. Regen as well. They have Rewire, which is for women in the sector and in renewables, so that's a good organisation to look at as well. But there's so many different renewables based organisations that have conferences going on. We've got, unless anyone else has any good places to go for that kind of thing, I'll move on to the next question, which is from Olivia. Where is it best to look for advertised jobs in the sector? I hate to use the buzzword again, but I'm going to say LinkedIn is good for that. Just keeping up to date with companies and reaching out to them as well. So they might not necessarily be advertising. Celtic Sea Power certainly wasn't advertising when I reached out to them. And it was just so much a well-timed email if they really needed someone, and I fit the bill quite well. Oh, Caitlin, have you got something to add?
Oh yeah, sorry, I put my hand up because I was going to let you finish. I was just going to double that. Again, talking to people across the sector, talking to people again in other green energy places. They say, they rarely advertise. Lots of times they find people because people email them and say, look, this is what I'm looking for. This is my experience. Are you hiring? You can keep it pretty informal as well. You don't have to send out your CV, especially if you don't know what they're hiring for. So if you are doing that kind of thing, it's more putting out what you're interested in. I'm looking for opportunities in this, this, and this. Do you have anything coming up? Because like you said, Olivia, like oftentimes people want to recruit, but there might be a number of reasons they're not advertising, including not enough capacity to even be able to advertise that they need more capacity. So I would definitely say it's worth contacting people and letting them know you're interested. Also, you can ask them to send you a email when they are hiring as well.
Yeah, schmoozing on LinkedIn is good. So Marta's asked, how do you find jobs in offshore wind in terms of work-life balance? Well, Celtic Sea Power, I can speak from experience, we only go into the office once a week firm. So on a Tuesday is our office day. Every other day we work from home, but you can go into the office 2 or 3 times a week if you want to, if you really want to see people. So I work really well in an office, for example, because I like having people that are near to me if I want to ask questions. But I think hybrid kind of working is becoming really, really common now. So if working at home suits your work-life balance better, I think you wouldn't struggle to find jobs that have that.
And I think that a lot of companies now have core working hours as well. So like between 10 and 4 or 10 and 3, where they like you to be available, but as long as you do your daily hours, you can do it the rest either side. So, if you are doing the school run or things like this, they're flexible around that as well.
Yeah, we're hybrid as well. I'm at home today, so it's a nice balance, because if you have a appointment in the middle of the day or something to do, you can do that, and then sort of be a bit flexible with your hours. I will say, like, sometimes in busy periods of time, it is really busy and it can be stressful. I think that's most jobs. But I think more and more now we are seeing these kind of hybrid roles where you can fit it around what works for you and your life, which is really good.
And I think that also allows you to work for companies that aren't in your local area as well. There's more of that now since COVID. Basically, the jobs are UK wide rather than you need to be close to the local office.
Definitely. Gabriella, Caitlin, have you answered Gabriella's question on, she's looking at the Uplift website. Do you have courses available for spring?
Probably. We've advertised those right now because those are covered by the digital or the shared prosperity funding. We did run Digital Uplift before shared prosperity funding. That funding ends in March, which is why ours currently just kind of goes up to January. Chances are we will be doing a spring cohort as well. We tend to avoid half terms and we tend to avoid any school holidays as well. So just keep an eye out on the site.
Thank you. And Deanna's got a question in the chat. Do you think many companies would be open to any shadowing / work experience opportunities so that you can get a bit more knowledge about that sector? Even if you're from the industry already, there's still a lot of unknown and it can be a little difficult to know what you want to do, especially specifically if it's not something you're used to doing. I think that a lot of companies are open to work experience, and I'm gonna take a bit of an opportunity to bang the apprenticeship drum here a little bit as well. As I said, the market's really shifting, and a lot of people that are already working in a sector but just want to pivot a little bit or want to develop their skills in a different sector completely are utilising apprenticeship programs. So I think that's really useful, as well as kind of getting experience with companies directly through work experience and shadowing, especially as it's paid, so it can be quite useful if you need that income still.
Just a second, the apprenticeship thing. The two people that took apprenticeship at the council are both over 30. One of them has 2 kids. And, you know, the thing that she said was she didn't realize that apprenticeships could be for her. She's got flexible working with the apprenticeship as well, which she also didn't realize was possible. It's not advertised as that. So she had to say, oh, I've got childcare issues. Can I do it flexibly? And then they said yes. So again, it's not just always that the skills aren't advertised. Sometimes flexibility isn't advertised too. So it's worth checking that. And that's been really good. I agree with you, Olivia, because in that apprenticeship, they intentionally move you around to different jobs and have you try different things and different skills within it. So a lot of them are set up intentionally to help you find what's good. But it's a shame more companies don't do like the kind of work experience we offer for year 10 students. It'd be probably way more effective to offer it for actual professionals. But I haven't come across many programs that do it.
Sorry, I did just want to add, I've been working on a project and we've had 2 work experience students all summer. So I think companies are out there. It's just probably worth asking because I don't think they advertise it.
Yeah, I think we react to requests rather than say we're taking work experience.
Yeah, we'd be the same. I think that does happen quite a lot where they don't advertise internships and work experience, but when you reach out, then quite often companies are open to it.
Yeah, I think the worst thing that happens as well is that you don't get offered. So like people are always willing to help and no one's going to be mean if you ask.
What I will say is I don't think we get many requests from people other than people in school or in college or in university. So I think it'd be great to start seeing requests from people who are already working, who are looking for sector changes.
Fabulous. Has anyone got any questions before we drop off? Any final questions from everyone? It doesn't look like it. So I will, oh, Rebecca, yeah. Was that a legacy hand? I'll say it's a legacy hand.
Legacy, just a mistake. Apologies.
No problem, you're okay. Okay, so thank you everyone for coming and thanks so much to our 3 guest speakers. I will make all the slides available and I'll send out the long list of free courses to everyone on the call, but I will send out the courses for people in Cornwall. Once you've done the paperwork that I need, then I will send you the login details. But thank you all so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.